Benny L.
And I am Mozey, and this is our Fabric limited edition 64 bar. Good start.
There you go.
When we start with our bass, we're going to throw some drums in. So I think me and Ben probably work in the same way, like the majority of producers. Always got to have a sort of solid starting point. Yes, I mean at the moment we're just, most of the sounds that we're sticking in here are 909 samples, which basically
comes with it, yeah.
Yeah, they come with Ableton. Maybe an open hat on the snare as well. At the moment, we're trying to sort of think ahead. You're going to want something. This is a mistake that I'd make when I first started. Would be, you know, you think something sounds alright, and then when you get further down the line, you realise it's just going to get lost in the mix. So you want. You probably say the same when you're Ben. You just need stuff that's going to really punch through. I mean, especially the sort of style of
That's better.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. So when we're looking at samples at the moment, we're trying to think of stuff that's going to cut through on different systems as well. You know, you want it to sound big and strong on a club system, but also you want the drums and stuff to have nice top end to them. You know, like that kick that Ben's found there.
I like quite live drums, and obviously these are like drum, you know, like 909s and 808s, but just trying to find like the hats that can like.
Yeah, and a bit of a human element.
Like the sample sort of goes on a bit, not too static.
Yeah, so again, we're just doing things at the moment just to add a bit of realness to it. You know, there's still ways of people, if you wanted a sample, you know, if you're not going to pay out for contact and things like that, you could sample real drums, you could sample stuff off funk records and get your hits like that. We'll get our drum beat rolled out and then we'll just try and move. Yeah, I think if you start the project organised, it's a good way to go on it rather than having to go back. You haven't spent enough time getting the foundations down and then it just sounds crap. You have to go back and fix it all anyway. So if you can get a nice solid start in there, then it's easier to catch a vibe. It's easier to sort of get into it and think, yeah, this is going somewhere now. What if we had a little rim shot or something on top of that, just to give it the
little layer on it.
Just to give it the snap. I think I was just talking about adding a layer in there. You also got to make sure, you know, a lot of the time people will like split their snares into different sections, and you want something out of a synth. Like a lot of people, like, you know, Current Value, a lot of them like producers like that will have something out of a synth that just gives us like a synthetic hit. Like Ben's and some reverb on. I mean, what I personally, you know, I think there's a number of different reasons for it. You can one is that it carries things through. You know, you're creating more of a groove to it.
Yeah, when it's a bit too static, it's sort of a bit lifeless.
So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to imagine if someone's got their headphones on, they haven't got the benefit of a room giving a reverb naturally. So we're trying to create that effect. So if someone's got headphones on, they don't feel like they're freaked out, like they've got a hi-hat in the side of their ear. Like at the moment, we're just doing the sort of boring bits, just trying to get everything leveled and just sounding okay. So we're happy with it, and then we can move on. Yeah, there's two schools of thought with, you know, when you start using a lot of processing and stuff, whether you leave it till further down the project or whether you sort of start at the beginning. But Zinc told me a good, and he said you wouldn't turn the lights off and then paint a room and then turn them on at the end. So you want to be able to see what you're doing throughout. Yeah, sounds nice, So we're happy with the drums at this point. Like I was saying about you want to keep things moving when you're working together. Sometimes it's good to just keep the idea fresh, you know, onto the next thing. You can always go back. If you're starting with your bass lines, it's always a good start point because it's just solid. You know, it's going to have the most weight in it. At this point, we're just trying to get anything out. You can always start messing about with things after. We're already making the speakers wobble. So I mean, we found the basic shape tables are in a lot of these wavetable synths. So what we've done, we've just got our basic. So as you heard it, first of all, that sort of gritty, growly bass, that was just with a filter wide open. And then Ben's got like a filter that we've put on top of that. So you're basically, you know, it's how much of that signal you're letting through. It doesn't always go to plan. And I suppose a good example would be like last time me and you was in the studio, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, it was there for the other day.
I was over at Ben's recently, and we had like, you know, a sort of a nice idea at the start, and you're sort of working through it, and we just carried on, and then next thing you know, it's like
you're stuck in a loop or something.
Yeah, 6 hours later, and you're just worse off than when you started, really.
So what I'm doing here, what I do is I usually group things together, and so it's called a bus. Like, so you've got drum bus and then bass, and then I like to have the reverb parallel into another send, and then the sub. So basically like channel, but you split the channel then into 3.
You don't really want loads of reverb on your bottom end because it's just creating width and mess. Yeah. A good tip to people starting out as well is start to get used to a template, because then you can just dive straight into a project, everything's already done. So at the moment we're still looking at just the processing and the sends on that bass line, so that wherever we start putting through it is going to be EQ'd to the right place.
And then also you can do it for every bass sound that you put in. You don't have to keep on having it on each channel.
Me personally, when I'm in the studio, the hardest part for me is getting a bass and you know, a bass sound that I'm happy with. A lot of the time I could be there for days working on that. That's quite nice, a little flutter. So yeah, if we get something like that in, then that'll be nice if we can add some saturation stuff like that on that. You know, I quite like it open a little bit more. Yeah, like that. It might just be because where we're sitting, but it sounds nice like that. Do you know what you could have? You know, like boom, 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 like that. Like a sort of need for memories. Yeah. I think over the last few years, a lot of music's just got. They just want one bass, and it's just the one note thing is often just a call, but it's wait for the trains. But the call and response, it gives you so much flexibility, because you can just affect one little part of it. It gives you 2 options, you know. So it might be an idea if we got a little vocal stab on the one and the one in the fire, so something like that, do you know what I mean? So it's always good to have, if you're on speakers, have your headphones handy. Like I got mine here ready to check. So it's always good to have a couple of sources. We're changing the drums based on the vibe of the bass as well, because this is like a sort of, it's turned into like a more sort of jungly bass line then, isn't it? Do you know what? Like, a lot of people swear by really expensive monitor headphones that they use and stuff like that. A lot of people use like the HD 25s. I'll probably get shot down in flames by all the mastering engineers and stuff for this, but it's what you trust and it's what you know. I reckon a nice, you can have like a sample, like I said, on the first hit. I often search for like monologues.
How come the company sent us a goddamn robot?
Do you want to use that, yeah?
Yeah, go on, use it.
The company sent us a goddamn robot.
The thing is, like with drum and bass, like clipping it a bit, and it also gives like a bit more movement in the sub when you're like, I use a lot of hardware and.
Oh, like, well, when you clip it.
Yeah, with the you can like push the lows, and it sort of then like sort of gives this like self oscillating sort of thing.
How come the company sent us a goddamn robot?
We can play with that in a bit, can't we?
Yeah, that's all you've got to do.
So what are you doing now? You're just going to throw something?
Yeah, just
an intro.
Put it all.
Yeah, so now we're just going to throw, you know, again, because we're limited by time, it's good just to throw something in there just so you've got an idea of what the intro will be. A lot of the time when you just want to get it so a DJ or yourself or whoever can play it out, can test it. So, you know, as long as it's got, I think I've had it before where it's just literally a hi-hat and not much else, just so it's testable, just so you can get it and play it out.
That's quite cool.
Slap a bit of reverb on it. I think when I'm going for a pad or something like that on an intro, a lot of the time it's reverb, delay, loads of it. Finding intros are you know, you can often just throw bits in there, and it's quite an easy one to come back to when you've got time in it. Intros generally, you can sort of build them up as the project goes along. I find a lot of time they write themselves really, but that's when you've done a bit more work to the actual main body of the tune. Sound like TI intro now, isn't it? I mean, the whole point of the intro is just to build tension as well. I suppose you've got a lot of time, you know, I'll be looking at risers, stuff like that, which again you can either get. There's a lot of, yeah, when it comes to sample packs. I keep waiting for that drop now. When it comes to sample packs and things, you know, I get quite a few sample packs. I find them really useful. Some people just don't use them as much. By the Producer is one that I've been using a lot more recently, and they are doing artist feature packs. I might actually be doing one of them soon, but they basically, you know, they go with an artist, and the artist then gives them a load of their samples or the samples that they've created. So you know you're going to get really high quality stuff. I mean, this is a good example of how you do work sometimes. Now we're just going to try and fill it out as much as we can. If you've got two subs overlapping and they're in different notes, then you could start to get phase issues and distortion and stuff like that. So you just sort of tidy it up as you go and just make sure everything's bubbling nice. What we're doing when we're, you know, affecting where the bass hits and all that thing, the crux of it is what it comes down to is you've got to keep interest and you've got to keep people moving on the dance floor. So every 16, you want to have something that changes and something that keeps it interesting. If there's two of you working in the studio together, it's quite often handy for one of you to be on a laptop, because then you can be sourcing sounds and bits like that. Like, you know, now I'd be going through and trying to find some risers, trying to find bits like that I can then give Ben give Ben a USB and just say, look, there's a load of bits I've found, and then just plop them in it. So we're just adding some saturation. I think we're just sort of fighting at the moment, just trying to get that one sound to sort of bring it all together.
Like that, yeah. So it could be like.
Yeah, and then it'll go. Then that'll lead back into again what I was saying about finishing a 16. It can even go down to like a 4 bar like this. So we open it right up, and it closes down. Yeah, and then closing down. This is basically the call and response thing, just in. Take that back to the 13. That's it there. Again, we're just trying to just add things at the moment, just to keep interest. Trying to add a few changes. Yeah, we're just adding new sounds. Sometimes you can add an extra snare layer or add something in there just to give it a bit of interest. What's that on? Is that another layer?
Just like do it on that bit there.
On the off one. Are we going to have that bass in from the start as well? Or you can come in?
I think on the second bit,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you want to have a listen from there? See how see how that sound's going to the drop. What do you reckon about a riser or something in the start? Or do you not think it needs it?
Yeah, can do.
Go up an octave with that last note. Yeah, I reckon try that. Yeah, any of these intro bits were basically just trying to make it a little bit ghostly, a little bit weird. Making it weird.
Making it weird.
Make it weird. So we're just going to put a delay in it, which is basically an echo. So we're just trying to sort of wrap up, get some sort of arrangement to the intro now. I reckon maybe leave that so you still get a little bit of delay, just carry it through. Shot late like that.
Like that.
Yeah, or maybe even put it on an off note. Do you know what I mean? So like that's all. So we're just coming to the end of the 2 hours now, which has flown by as I knew it would do. I'm quite happy with how it's coming on so far.
Like we should definitely like finish it and then take it to our own studios and like do our own little techniques that we usually do. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's quite hard to give 100% when you're not in your own scenario.
Yeah, I think something could come out of that definitely.
It's been protecting it right along. Plug it in.
How come the company sent us a goddamn robot?
Thank you.